I just met Marco. What is your name?
Alberto.
Alberto. Hey, nice to meet you. So we are going to be talking about spreading and expanding the edges of your kindness, based on the retreat that we just did in Nicaragua. With Peter was there. And this is also something that we're talking about from Hector's class. Hector teaches on Thursday nights usually, and he's away right now, so he asked us to teach while he was away. And the last course he did was, the last class he did was on emptiness, and the next couple of classes we'll be talking about ethics and vows, and also bodhicitta and compassion. And the entire retreat that we just came from was learning how to love, and the entire meditation that we did was about finding the essence of love and then expanding that as much as you can into the entire universe. And so I wanted to talk just about like love and what is love and baby don't hurt me. But I want it to be very like casual. It's not like I'm up here sitting teaching and explaining to you guys. I wanted to open up the discussion because a lot of times we don't get to talk about this stuff in Hector's class because there's so much information that's being taught to us that we don't get to sit and talk. So it's very chill.
Have you guys been on retreat before? How many people have been on meditation retreat before in this room? One. You have. Okay. So we should talk a little bit about like what we actually did on retreat, which was it was a 7-day retreat. We did 7 days of silence.
It was 6.
6 days of silence. So we arrived where we were staying in Nicaragua on this lake that was just incredible, this imploded volcano that turned into a lake. We did a little puja to bless the space, a little ceremony, and then we entered silence at that point. And from there, it was like 5:30 a.m. wake up time, go meditate for an hour, do your yoga, read the scripture. We were reading something called the Bodhisattva Charyavatara, which if you were just in the yoga class prior to this, Roseanne actually read an excerpt of the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. It's an entire scripture dedicated to turning your heart into the heart of a saint. Like, what is a saint's heart? What does it do? What does a saint's mind do? What would it be like if you loved everyone just as much as you love yourself? What would happen if you loved yourself the way that you're supposed to love yourself? And so we worked with that scripture. We kept vows. Some of us entered retreat with vows already, and then some of us who didn't have vows actually took vows and tried to maintain vows for the duration of the retreat. And from the beginning of the retreat, we went progressively deeper into the visualization that Stephen's going to teach. It's really beautiful. It's kind of complex. If you've ever seen those Tonka paintings with like the Buddha in the middle and then all these other floating dudes around, do you know what I'm talking about with all the circles and colors? So it was a little bit like that. And we played a little bit with space and time and how love could pervade all of those things.
And we did yoga.
We did yoga.
Twice a day.
Yeah.
And the series that we were doing, we were doing 2. We did like Ashtanga yoga in the mornings, and then we did this other series, Lady Naguma, which is you can speak on it.
I actually teach Lady Naguma on Sundays. Lady Naguma is an Alaya yoga practice. You guys have heard of that. The point of the practice is dissolution of the form. You're essentially bringing energy into your central channel in the hopes that you can achieve higher levels of realization. The point of it, like all of those terms aside, is to bring your mind to the most optimal place to experience love, that pervasive love, and also to have something called the direct perception of emptiness, which is one of the main realizations on this path. Understanding how reality functions, understanding how and why what you do determines how your reality appears to you. Hey.
Hey, John. Yeah, there's a chair right there.
There's one right there.
Oh, thank you.
So we did that because when you can get the subtle energies in the body moving, and this is something that the founder of this place talks about a lot. If you can move the prana in a certain way, you're more likely to understand concepts more quickly. You're more likely to be a better meditator, a kinder person, because you're manipulating your subtle body to do what you want, essentially. And so it was a relief to have that practice in the middle of the day, at least for me. How did you feel about it? It saved me.
To have the yoga practice in the middle of the day?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was an excellent balance.
Yeah. And on top of that, we were silent the entire time, which really allows you to like go deep in your meditations. Have you guys ever, I know you've done meditation retreats, have you ever been silent? Like, when's the last time you can think of like, oh, I was silent for an entire day? Like, that doesn't ever happen. You have to like go on a retreat. I don't know, I feel like even being silent for 2 hours doesn't happen that often during your day. You're constantly talking and you're using so much energy. It's like your brain power plus like the energy just to make the vocal cords vibrate and then know what you have to say. Like all this energy and prana is used to talk. And when you don't talk, you're like, wow.
I have so much energy.
So much energy. Yeah. And then your mind settles down and you become more flexible in your meditation. It's like so beautiful. And for me, I don't even realize it like when I'm in retreat of how deep I go until you break silence and come out of retreat. And then you're like, whoa, I was like really in it. Like I was like really meditating and now I can't meditate at all. Like breaking silence and then trying to meditate again, you're like, no, this isn't gonna work.
Yeah, and part of the reason why silence is so beautiful has to do with keeping your ethics really pure. The idea is that, and we can get into how and why ethics are important for meditation and important for how your reality kind of functions. But one of it is like, if you've ever seen Buddhist vows, or like, I'm pretty sure vows in most religions are around not saying bad things, not saying evil things, not using your words to hurt others. And it's interesting, once you start keeping your vows, which like I know some of you either have a vow book or you've tried one at least at one point, you start to notice how, oh, I said that thing and like it wasn't the nicest thing. Even if you're not going around like yelling at people or being mean to people, you start to notice how your words maybe aren't the purest or sweetest things that you're then forced to re-experience. And so part of the silence is that we actually like keep ourselves as pure as possible, and then you're just witnessing your crazy thoughts, which
which isn't as bad as it sounds.
It can be
depending on the retreat.
I mean, the first time I did a retreat, I thought I was going to lose my mind because I was like, I'm going to be left with my thoughts. Like, I'm going to lose my mind. No, I can't do it. And then I did it, and I was like, this ain't so bad. It's not as, I mean, it's challenging, but it's not like something you can't cope with. But it's also, what's so beautiful about being in silence too is like, there is nothing that you can really point to or blame for the way you're feeling. So like I mean, yes, we were with other people, but on a daily basis, like somebody does something or somebody says something, and then like you react or you might get angry or whatever it is, and then you're like, that's the reason for the way I feel right now. And then when you're in retreat, you don't have those reasons, but you still have the stuff coming up. You're like, I'm just angry right now, and I have no reason for it. Like I'm just experiencing anger. This is awful and challenging, and then it goes away, and then like you might experience bliss, and then it goes away. Like all the stuff that bubbles up, you don't have the external like stimuli, and then you're like, wow, I really do make everything that is in my life and cause everything to happen. So let's jump into karma and emptiness.
Dive right in.
Well, the reason I want to jump into it is I want to jump into compassion, but we can't really jump into that without talking about emptiness. Although we could, and then it would just be compassion without wisdom. So does everyone know what compassion is? Or like what's your take on compassion? When I was trying to think of like what we talk about tonight, I started really thinking about like, why is it that we have to be kind? Like, what's the point of kindness?
Like, how do you convince someone who hasn't already heard these teachings, basically, that kindness is important? Because like in our community, and when you're on retreat especially, and when you're around practitioners all the time, there's kind of this like pervasive understanding of like, yeah, we all want to try to be good people. And then when you talk to someone who maybe hasn't adopted that lifestyle or hasn't heard teachings yet, it's kind of like you're trying to make a case for it, but if you haven't spent time analyzing the logic behind why kindness is important and how it functions in your reality, you're not going to be able to convince like your aunt on Christmas to be nice to people or something. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, the reason why kindness is so important is because it functions in our reality and gives us results that we want. It helps bring us out of suffering.
I think you said it last week about you would only do what you would want done to you, right? Is that you that said that last week? Yeah. But I'll do a pen thing. I have a really good pen too. No, I mean I have that one, but it's not as good as the one that you got me from China. No, that's not it. That's also really good. There's a diamond on the top of this one.
I don't know.
So, in order to explain emptiness, we always do the pen thing, right? Have you heard of the pen thing? Okay, cool. Well, yay.
Everyone's heard of the pen thing?
Yeah.
Oh, no, okay.
Cool. So, like, if I pulled this out and I'd be like, what is this? You guys would be like, it's a pen, right? Do you guys? It's a pen with a little diamond on the top. But you can all agree on that, right? Everyone's like, yeah, it's a pen. Twist it, you can write with it. It's got ink. And if I had a small dog that came in here and I was like, what is this? They would just start chewing on it, right? So for them, it's a chew toy, but for us, it's a pen. But it's this one thing, right? So how can this one thing be both? Now, if I put this on the cushion here, and all of us left the room, and all the dogs left the room, what is it at that point?
The same pen?
Is it a pen?
Pen because you can use it as a pen. If you stay there, you can't use it. It's an object.
Yeah, right. It's an object. It's not.
It's got no use.
Got no use. It's maybe nothing at that point if nobody's perceiving it. But as soon as a human being comes in the room and they lay their eyes on this thing, it becomes a pen again. And then the dog comes back and for them it becomes a chew toy. Like I can't make a dog right with this. I can't convince them that this is a pen. As I'm pretty sure I can. So why are we seeing this as a pen, and why is the dog seeing it as a chew toy? If I wanted to see it as something else, could I? Like if I close my eyes and I'm like, I want to see it as a chocolate bar, and then like really try to see it as that, could I will that into existence to be a chocolate bar?
You can hallucinate it.
I could hallucinate that, yeah.
But other than that, no.
Right. So like, why do I have the perception of this thing as a pen as opposed to like a chew toy? And the answer goes to karma, like not the sense of karma as in like, oh, it's your luck or it's your doing, but it's like, what have I done in the past to see this in the present as a pen? And it's a little bit easier to explain with certain situations or emotions rather than like inanimate objects. Like for instance, if you're an angry person and you yell at people all the time, you're probably going to be experiencing a lot of angry people yelling at you all the time. And it's that sort of like what you give out is what you get in, that sort of karma. I guess you could say karmically, like I have given a lot of people pens, and so I see a lot of pens. But the tiny, subtle karmas are hard to realize. But does that make sense? And why we do that as a analogy for emptiness is because this object doesn't have any inherent nature to it. It's empty of having any nature as a pen. Because if it was a pen, then everybody seeing this, even the dog, would say, this is a pen. So it's empty of having that penness to it. And that's the same for everything. If it's true for this, it's true for, this cup. This cup is empty of being a cup from its own side. It's not like, I'm a cup. It's all like whatever you're perceiving, right? So emptiness, meaning the lack of any inherent nature in something. That's the emptiness of it.
In judgment.
In judgment. It involves judgment. Or you're saying in judgment?
No, I'm saying it's lack of, is that absence or suspending judgment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. You want to back me up or have anything to add to
Yes,
that?
emptiness is the right answer. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what you mean by judgment, actually, when you said judgment, what did you mean?
Well, it's perceiving that as an object without projecting onto it our experiences and what they used to see it as. No? That's what I meant. Judgment, not in a moral sense, just in general. Judging something because, as you said, you have an object, it could have been a pen, I could have said there's a cylinder, there's a shape, but I don't know what it is. It could be anything.
Yeah.
So if you suspend your judgment, you do not see it as something that you're used to see it as. But
how do you suspend your judgment?
They would even debate you on the object itself, without being called a chew toy or a pen, is not dependent on your judgment. if that makes sense. Like it's not just there's an object and then I label the object pen. It's the actual physical material itself too is empty of any nature. Because the deeper you go investigating, is it round? Where does the roundness start? And like, what is it made out of? And you go all the way down to the atoms, and then there's parts of an atom. And you just eventually come up blank with an answer. You come up empty of having any answer to that. Yeah, I thought you were thinking.
Oh no, I liked the idea of when you say judgment, it makes me think of an element of control. Like if I can find the key to my automatic judgments, then I'll be free from seeing this as a pen, and then maybe I can make it something good, something better. It's a really good pen, but maybe I could make it like a wand for deathlessness. So how do I change my judgment? How do I change my automatic judgment? Well, the thing that we're all kind of running uphill to achieve here, when we're studying these courses, or if someone is trying to practice Buddhism, is to perceive emptiness directly. So you get to look at that thing, and what you're actually viscerally experiencing is the lack of its nature. You are actually bearing witness to the lack of its nature, and from that linchpin, the entirety of your reality, you understand. You see it without judgment as you're describing it. And so then the question becomes, and then the judgments filter back in after you've had that experience, and then you have to work your way through. But then the question becomes, like, if that pen thing is true, and if there's a way to suspend my judgment of reality, which ultimately hurts me, right? There has to be a way to cause the experience of freedom from the judgments. It's not just like squeezing your eyes hard enough and then like the judgment goes away. And so the whole crux of our retreat and the crux of this talk and the second wing of the bird, the two wings are wisdom and compassion, the whole crux is kindness. Because the only way that you can ever get to a point where you suspend that automatic judgment that just makes that a pen that will disappear, it will go away, it will come up blank. The whole way to get to that unraveling is through the staircase of kindness up to that experience. And the reason why it functions that way is because it's empty of a nature. So then we must utilize morality to start to understand how reality functions, why suffering exists. Suffering exists because I'm throwing razor blades out into the world thinking that they're hitting something out there, and then there's a little time lapse and they boomerang right back and they hit me in the heart. Because that world is dependent on my judgments. And if I witness myself hurling out weapons, I must be harmed by those weapons. So if I'm going to get anywhere outside of that swirl of samsara, it must be through kindness. Because otherwise I'm just going to be constantly injured. My vision will be obscured.
And hence why we meditate and why we're moral beings.
Mm-hmm.
It's all to get to that direct perception of emptiness.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
I was just thinking that a nice thing to add about things not having a nature would be that just because it doesn't have a nature doesn't mean that it doesn't exist for you. So the emptiness is just what allows it to exist. So I just think it's always good to highlight that even though the quality of penness isn't in the thing, it's what we experience, it doesn't mean that it doesn't function for you. So we can't just like have an empty bus out there that I perceive as a bus, but an elephant doesn't perceive as a bus. It still functions that way, so that if I walk in front of an empty bus with my empty body and there's an empty car crash, I will still die. Like, the emptiness is what allows it to function. So
Yeah.
I just like to highlight that point, because it doesn't mean that things don't exist at all. It just means that they exist because they are empty.
No, that's good. It's important.
I missed that one, apologies. Only thing trying to explain it, but
Yeah, sure.
I didn't understand this concept of why something functions because existing is empty.
Like they say karma and emptiness is like two sides of the same coin. So karma being the movement of the mind, in its most like naked definition. So the movement of the mind, so that being like not just consciousness, but like the things that we think, say, and do. And jump in whenever you want. So
Yeah.
everything that we do towards our reality, towards our world, is making an impression. You're the one recording it. You're always recording what you do. Like whether or not you remember it is a different story, but you're always seeing or perceiving the things that you do and the way that in which you do them. So, if I react with love towards somebody, then I'm seeing that I'm loving. But the thing that I'm acting towards doesn't have a nature from its own side, right? Like I perceive it the way I do, and I act towards it that way. But when you have wisdom, knowing that the Jeremy doesn't exist from his own side, meaning like I have my own experience of Jeremy, you have your own experience of Jeremy, everyone has their own experience of Jeremy, he has his own as well. But what comes up for me is my karma, and what comes up for you is your karma, right? So I'm acting in my own world with the karma that I'm experiencing, and to have wisdom, to know the emptiness, that it's empty, or Jeremy isn't. It's so difficult for me to explain it, but it makes sense. If you want to jump in, if you have better words.
Can you give an example of why, like, so you're saying you don't understand
So the
why?
fact that Jeremy, let's continue with this, guys. The fact that Jeremy is a quality of emptiness allows you to experience and me to experience, and each of us experiencing differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens is your experience, something pops up in your mind and labels it on Jeremy.
Yeah.
That said, Jeremy still functions for you. I can engage with him because for me, he is a human being. For a mosquito, he is food, right? And that it still functions for the mosquito as food, and it still functions for me as a friend or whatever it is. But what emptiness is that quality is not in him. Jeremy-ness is not this way, because if it were, the mosquitoes would be best buddies with him and not try to eat him. But the fact that there is something in me forcing a Jeremy means that I caused Jeremy in me by things that I had done in the past, because colored my mind. They put an imprint on it.
Mm.
And that imprint brewed in me over time. It came out even bigger and stronger as a friend. And there could be many other things I had done to place imprints on my mind that color it, cook, and then throw out an entire world. And so that's why they're saying you have to have compassion. When you color your mind and put little seeds of compassion all in it, they cook up and they project a world of beauty and kindness and love. Or if you put seeds of like, F you, I hate you, you're an ass, and I'm gonna hit you and punch you and fight you, it colors your mind to project on an otherwise empty world. Something coming back to you is like, war, whatever it is.
Yeah, that was really good.
Another way of just simply saying it, emptiness means the world is just a blank
Easy
screen.
as.
It's a blank screen that we can project, we can project
Experiences.
onto it. And so that's why the point that the Hector constantly makes, we can change our perspective. And
You
you know,
can't change things because they don't have a point.
Right. It's our perception that we can change.
So we can change the world by changing the way
Right.
we project things.
Yeah.
And we change the way that we project on the world by interacting with the world in the way that we would want to be interacted with.
Yeah.
So one of the laws of karma is that the result is greater than the cause. So like, I think it's a good thing to keep in mind that like every little effort that we make toward creating a reality that we really want has this gigantic result that seems like so big compared to the little effort that we have made. And this concept is how and why the edges of your kindness are so important. Because, and we'll go through the meditation and you can see where we start in a really comfortable place and then we expand out into a place that is both beyond comfort and like the most bliss. We kind of spend most of our time going around being kind to people who we already like have as our little group of people who we want to be kind to. Right? Like maybe your parents or your lover or your dog or whatever. And so if karma and emptiness are true, if they're truly the two main principles of reality, or the one principle, depending on how you look at it, if that's true, and we're like, by doing that, we're like wasting all of these people that we could be like planting these beautiful karmas with. But it feels really counterintuitive to expand past the normal circle of kindness, like the annoying person on the train, or like the annoying person at work, or someone who just like fundamentally believes bad things about the world and is mean and doesn't seem worth your kindness, or someone who's hurt you, someone who's hurt others.
Or yourself.
Like Donald Trump. Yeah, like that, he's a really good example, and I've heard a lot of teachers like talk about him in regards to pushing past the edges of your kindness, because truly if we want to create a paradise, and if we want to get that feedback from reality, which isn't just, oh, I'm going to look at it differently, it's planting a karma so that you're forced to see it differently. You're actually forced by your own merit to see the world as beautiful.
Like one day you would wake up and like Donald Trump would be doing like altruistic things in the world, and you'd be like,
and he would
what
be
the hell is
hot.
going on?
He would be sexy
Yeah.
too. Like it wouldn't just be like partially good. Like everything would just be so beautiful and so blissful because you have been so beautiful, so kind, so generous, so patient. And all of those karmas have a huge, I don't know business. What is it? Like a big return on your investment, right? Is that the right words? Okay. So if we want to be forced to see ourselves as that beautiful thing that a Buddha is, we can't just plant a small garden. We have to go past, like into the places where we've been avoiding, because that's actually the limit of our potential. Those dark corners that we avoid looking at or avoid showing our vulnerability to, because that's like really what it is. It feels vulnerable. But once you kind of go there with your heart completely open, that is super powerful. And it's pushing past the limits that keep you confined in a human mind and in a human reality. Like in an experience that has to break down and fail you. Because if you don't fail the world and all of the beings, not just humans, but also insects, animals, things that have a consciousness that can see you hurting them or helping them. Like once you permeate that boundary, then the boundaries don't exist anymore. And so that was...
and then like blasting out into the universe beyond just this planet, because there must be more life than just planet Earth.
We
The
sent up
universe
aliens too in the retreat. That was like the most fun part, actually.
Yeah. And the universe is infinite in all directions, so there's an infinite amount of beings.
That was my favorite part, because in meditation, once we became flexible in meditation and it felt like comfortable and we were pliant in it, we were encouraged to try to find the edges of our kindness to push past them. And once you do that mental exercise, you realize that you're like placing the tile out as you step on it. Like you're creating the reality where the kindness should exist. Each moment you're pushing past, you actually start to understand how your mind traveling there is creating it, which is really cool. And really beautiful when you can also be kind in that space.
I want to know how much time it is, because I want to do the meditation. Okay, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions about that?
I'm sure there's a ton of questions.
I'm just making a comment to what you just said. You're basically being kind to others, so you're being kind to yourself, totally.
Yeah.
It's healing your own inner thoughts, and so you can be kind to yourself. And the challenge of that is being able to accept infinite kind. Because I just know what my conditioning is no. And so it's been growing, he's been learning to change that no to a yes, and it's been a long, slow process.
Yeah, opening my heart in retreat was really difficult. And also, Hector was teaching us that one aspect is to be kind to yourself in multiple ways. So like in the actual meditation, like you would go back to past memories and send love to yourself when you were hurting your past, or forgive yourself, and, which was really difficult. Almost everybody was like, no, I don't want to do that. And then, I think just forgiveness to yourself was difficult, and then opening your heart in general and being loving, sending love to every being is a challenge. Yeah.
So when you guys are talking about like expanding your kindness, because that's gonna eventually color your world and et cetera, how did you manage the fear of knowing that your negative past seeds of not loving were gonna show up and like you know, that vulnerability, you're like, oh, I'll love now, except I know what a douche I have been in the past. So I'm gonna be forced to experience razor blades that I have already thrown out. And like, without, I don't even, it would be really hard to purify that. I know we have a code to purify the things, but like, I don't even know what I did. I just know it's gonna be real bad. So how did you manage that fear?
I got angry at death. I know I always do that. I have to stop using that. I have to get another motor. But ultimately, like for me, what helps, and I was hurt very deeply right before I entered retreat, so it was a really beautiful space to practice because my heart was just like, so there's one is like the textbook answer, right? Which is like, there is a time lag on your karma. So you have to do the right thing to get the right thing. If you do the right thing, if you're vulnerable, if you're kind, if you're loving, and someone takes advantage of you, it was not caused by you being kind. It was caused by something that you did in the past where you took advantage of someone, right? So that's one thing. And you can tell yourself that when you're having an emotion. In my experience, it is not effective when I'm hurt or I'm angry. It doesn't help me very much. I think that algorithm is really nice for meditation when you're getting your mental faculties more pliant around how karma works. But for me, one of the things was, I'm sick of suffering. I have to get this over with now. Like, I have to understand how to love now because I'm sick of like hurting other people and then getting hurt and then hurting other people and then getting hurt. Like, I am so done with it. And there was a sort of fire in me, and maybe you can talk about your experience too, but for me, there was sort of a fire in it, and certainly I got strength from having both of my teachers very close to me. But it was just like, okay, like every layer that I felt that could possibly have faked being protection, I just was like, okay, all right, okay, I'm just gonna love you, I'm just gonna love you. And like the faces of the people who have hurt me, the faces of the people with whom I feel most vulnerable, I opened myself completely in this space of retreat. And it's hard being back in the world to actually maintain that, because retreat is a really sacred space, and we blessed the perimeter of the area, and we invited all of the angels in, and we told all of the demons to go away, which we don't do in New York City, at least publicly. So that's what I did. I just got tired of suffering. I got tired of thinking that things like therapists and medications and alcohol and shopping and money were going to make a difference, because I already realized that they don't make a difference. So like the only way to get out is to just try this crazy thing called loving everybody, and just like, okay, here we go, like, please come back.
But all the remedies you mentioned are in different ways tackling the same thing. I mean, medication is trying to stop your mind from keep hating yourself, or or therapy is a way to let go of anger. I mean, they're all ways to address the same problem. Maybe they work in different levels. But
Yeah, it's important to relieve suffering in any way that we can.
But some of them aren't gonna lead to like a permanent result, right?
they relieve the symptoms, or
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think my point was like, I wanted to try something radically different from everything else that I've tried, where I've seen this practice turn people into beautiful, amazing beings, and I've met people who are so strong and loving and like not afraid. Like they will radiate love at you just because you're in the vicinity. And that's something that I wanted to be, and it's something I wanted to be around. So one of the beautiful things about being a teacher, which isn't necessarily the point of this talk, one of the beautiful things about having a teacher is that you can actually witness a person or an angel who the practice has completely transformed, and who you hope to become by doing a similar thing. Sorry, were you going to say something?
I was going to share something, but I didn't indicate in any way that I was. Because your question made me definitely think about a lot of the practice of purifying negative karma or seeds that I've planted. The easy ones I find it's so important to rejoice in, because I'm cultivating the seed of rejoicing in the fact I'm cleansing my karma for the really hard stuff later. So I think for me, the small stuff is really important to rejoice, because I'm also planting a seed of cleansing karma. So when the big fearful stuff comes, I've already cultivated enough karma in that way to purify something really big.
Please answer
Sarah's question.
Yeah, Steve, I'd love to hear what you said.
So you said, how do you not fear all the shady stuff that you've done in the past? Well, the fear itself is another mental affliction, right? So like, everything that comes up in your mind, at this point, is kind of like a mental affliction. But like everything that comes up in retreat, you have to like, and that's why retreats are so beautiful. It gives you the space to address, like take a step back and be like, okay, I have this fear over what's going to come up from my past karmas, which does not exist right now. The only thing that's existing for you right now in that space is the fear. So you have to address the fear. And then like, when something does come up for you, then it's a different thing altogether, right? Because then you're not fearing it, it's there. You don't have to fear it, and it's like, okay, now I'm feeling anger. So you're like addressing things as they come up, and that's why retreats are so beautiful, because you like kind of take a step back. And like, of course you get caught up in it, but that's why we go into retreat, is to like, you get caught up in it, and then like you're able to take a time out from it, or you meditate. But one thing that actually happened to me in this past retreat, which was so beautiful, was I was like really angry, or I call it anger, but I wasn't angry towards like one thing in particular. It was just like my heart being completely locked, and it felt like extreme aversion, or like disliking, like my it's the right channel, right? Like one side was just completely constricted. One side channel just was like, felt completely constricted. My heart was so locked. And then Hector's like, okay, today we're gonna practice like just loving everything, just being joyful about everything. And I'm like, are you, like, this is so dumb. Like it's like telling someone when they're sad, like, don't be sad. And you're just like.
And also it's his partner, so like, I was like, poor Steve.
Yeah.
But I couldn't say anything to him.
So, but in that, and so then we went into the meditation after that, and I'm just like sitting there fuming, and then I'm like, okay, well, I'll put some effort into it. Like, why not? I'm just gonna sit here anyway. So actually putting effort into it was like trying to swim upstream, and eventually it changed. Like, it actually, putting my mind on love, or like trying to recall moments in the past that I enjoyed, or like felt love or kindness from somebody or towards somebody, actually like shifted everything. So I felt it viscerally. Like, I felt when you place your mind on something, you're not thinking about the other thing. Like, when you're angry, or when you're in a bad mood, everything that you're thinking about is flavored by that bad mood. And then when you're putting your mind onto something virtuous or happier or love, then like, if you stay in there, then it flavors everything else. It's kind of like the fake until you make it. You can fake the happiness until you make it, or recall it. So.
It's a practice, it's something to cultivate, and some people do it quicker than others. But I like to move the terms that they're skillful versus unskillful. Once I started learning to use that, and so when I'm angry, let's say, because I used to feed the anger, that's unskillful. Observe the anger, but don't feed it. Because if I fight it, but that just is feeding it. So just observe it, detach from it. Don't feed it. That's being skillful, quickly unskillful. And it's unpeaceful. And you say, that can't be it. So I kept ignoring it. And I finally realized from what the teachers for, that is the goal, just ever increasing peace. So when I'm in peace, oh, that's the goal, stay there, cultivate it. That's being skillful. Cultivate the peace, find out what's causing it, and increase those causes. So it's been a slow process, but those two terms, unskillful and skillful, have been very helpful.
One thing that I'm thinking of from what both of you have and what you brought up is that I'm not like super strong in the logic around this, so bear with me because only a Buddha understands karma. Is the emptiness of karma. So like, if the mechanics of this philosophy are all true, like if reincarnation is true, and we've had countless previous lives, and we've done every possible thing, murder, rape, love, giving birth, beauty, nurturing. If we've done all of those things, we have all of those karmic seeds stored. And if we can work with them appropriately, there's no reason why the path has to be this arduous, linear, domino-like thing. There has to be a point where all of this turns into enlightened bliss. And once it is that, the previous step will have looked so foreign and probably really like disgusting, but actually no, you'll be forced to see it as bliss. But I guess my point is the tension between like what you are now and what you want to be, and the fear that all of those shitty things, which like I get that fear a lot too, all the shitty things that I've done, you know, I've only been practicing for 5 years. And before that, it was a lot of bad things, unskillful things. The way to like leapfrog is deeper kindness. Like the more sweet and kind and beautiful that you are, and especially like, okay, we should go over the 4 measurables because joy is a kindness. There's different types of kindness that you can utilize to fast track. And then you should. So have you guys heard of the 4 steps teaching? And Geshe Michael teaches the 4 steps to creating something. So you decide what you want, you find someone else who wants it, you help them get it, and then what do? Rejoice. That is a kindness. So you're doing the kindness of the other person out there, which is either helping them get what they want or helping remove something that they don't want. So Maitri or Karuna, which are 2 of the 4 measurables. And then Mudita, joy, sympathetic joy, sharing joy, is another kindness that you can practice. So there's different elements of kindness that you can utilize to get to this point, and you should use them. Like I should use them too, more, because that helps you go more quickly. And then there's something about like seeing everyone as an angel and seeing yourself as an angel and knowing that it's all empty probably also makes it go more quickly, but I am not qualified to teach that to you.
You guys want to meditate? Do you guys have any questions or like experiences or comments or things that came to mind? Do you want to share it, Peter? Because you were there too.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the aspect of going back to your younger self, and you put it in the way of forgiving yourself, which I think is a really perfect way of looking at it, because even if you were the one that was like abused or hurt when you're young, you're always going to take it on as something's wrong with you, and that like hangs out. That tends to like hang out for years and years. So going back and kind of like in a situation where you were the one that was hurt or abused and like forgiving yourself is feels like a really powerful tool to me.
I think we should do that one. Can we do that as part of it?
Yeah, for sure.
We were all like afraid to do this, and Hector just like sprung it on us in retreat. We were not prepared. It wasn't written in the like list of things we were gonna do in retreat, and that happens sometimes. Like as the retreat kind of moves, it happened last year too, where they would just like throw certain things out of us to shift the energy of the retreat. And like one day he was just like, you know, you're gonna go back into your childhood and heal yourself. And all the bullshit that you carry around with you, which if you stay with Hector long enough, you'll hear him talk about his automatic thoughts that come up for him, like about his weight and stuff. He talks about it all the time. And so the idea was like, recognize your limiting thoughts and like go back and just give yourself all of the love that you needed. And it was really beautiful. But we were all kind of scared. I think we were all just scared to lose our shit in front of each other. There's still, as deep as we got and as close as we became, there was still that fear of, I think, I mean, you can tell me I'm wrong, but at least for me, there was this fear of like falling apart or like being too emotional. Well, you were kind of angry. I don't know if you were afraid of that, people seeing that. I was angry at previous retreats, so I get it. It's not like in this retreat, I was mostly just like weepy. And then like I just didn't want to like look at little Rachel and be like, you're okay, because that felt really scary for some reason. So maybe we should do that together in this meditation. Do you feel comfortable guiding that?
Yeah, for sure. Cool.
Can we come in closer to each other? Just not like scary close, just close so that we're kind of united.
Like I want your knees to touch my knees.
Hold hands, touch each other's hearts.
Each ring does something different. Touching does something, not touching does something. Both have positive and negative effects.
Okay.
I'm really experiencing. Depending where I am,
I don't think we have to. I think if we just come in.
Really?
They're tools. True skills.
Do you feel okay coming in?
I just probably need my back.
With
I
your
try.
back?
I try.
Okay.
It's
Well, I
not
don't
gonna
want.
be like an hour.
Do you want to sit next to me?
No, it's probably gonna be like 20 minutes.
Oh,
I think I can handle it.
That's okay.
You can bring a chair over
As
there.
long as you're not uncomfortable, you can bring the
No, no.
chair in.
No, I think I'm gonna be okay.
Okay.
The energy's changed.
So make sure you're comfortable. No, looks good. Knees are supported. Cool. Two people went outside. I don't know if they're coming back.
I think we can just begin.
So you can rest your hands on your thighs or in your lap if you prefer. You want your spine to be nice and straight. You want to be perfectly balanced over your seat, so like you're being held up by a thread line running along your spine. Breathing through your nose, start to quiet your breath. Sitting perfectly still, like a rock, making a commitment with yourself for the next 20 minutes to be perfectly still so that your mind can settle down. Starting from the top of your head, working your way down to your feet, imagining your entire body transforming into blue sky. There's no organs or bones, just a thin layer of skin holding in the blue sky. At the center where your heart would be is a light. And now recall a moment in your life where you felt love. And replay that moment with as much detail, getting the full essence of that love that you felt. And as you do so, the light in your heart begins to shine brighter. And with that light in your heart, imagine it beaming to a moment in your past where you felt pain, where you need some healing. And when you heal yourself in the past, you go to the next time where you felt pain, and you heal yourself again until you bring yourself all the way to the present moment. And as you heal your entire past, coming to the present moment, now we send love to our future self. Maybe just pick one moment where you imagine yourself at your house or at work. And beam that light out from your heart to your future self. And imagine receiving it. And now that you've healed your past and sent love to your future, the light in your heart is expanding and shining even brighter. And now you're ready to help every other living being. And begin with the people you love. Imagine them wherever they are right now. And you send this light out from your heart as it reaches them and fills their entire being with love and happiness and joy and wisdom. And now imagine the people that you don't know that help you in many more ways than you can ever imagine. People that make your clothes, that make your food, that make the roads, the subways, the construction guys next door. All the things that you use and take advantage of, and all the people behind those things. Imagine the light in your heart reaching them. Now imagine all the people that you have problems with. The people you've had conflicts or arguments or differences of opinion. When you think about them, your heart might feel a little tight. But go against that and send them light and love and wisdom beaming from your heart. Watch them receive it and become happy. And as they smile, your heart releases that feeling of tightness. And finally send that light from your heart in every direction to every living being in this entire universe, washing over the entire earth and expanding to the next planet, and the next star, and the next galaxy, infinitely. And slowly coming back to the room, taking 3 deep breaths. Keeping that love in your heart. questions? Does anyone have questions or want to share? We did that 4 times a day for 6 days. It's pretty cool.
Does it get easier?
Yeah, a lot easier. It's funny because I haven't really done it too much since being back. Or maybe not spent as much time doing it, but like going into it, I feel like it's so smooth.
Yeah, and it's fun because there's so much that you can play with for the visualization. Like at the end, we were like all, when we could talk, we were all talking about the different types of visualizations that they're doing, like when you spread. We didn't do prelims either.
No.
So like, then you add prelims onto it. That's how I was saying, it's gonna be like a 45-minute meditation.
I know, I was almost about to do the films.
It would have taken way too long. But like at the end, when we're like spreading our love past our boundaries, like into the entire universe. People did it in really fun, creative, different ways. So like one person imagined like all of us as like a marching band that was like going around and like just like, I don't know why she thought that. And then another person who, now I do this, was like showering jewels on people. And like when the jewel touched the person, it wasn't just that they were happy, but they were also granted the wisdom to understand like where happiness comes from and the wisdom to destroy suffering. And actually that's the 4th immeasurable that I didn't mention earlier, Upeksha, wanting to share insight with people so they understand where their reality is coming from. But you can really like play, and then in the past and the future, you can really spend a lot of time. Like, when's the first time I ever felt pain? When's the second time I ever felt pain? And you can really trace. So for me, like, I'm someone, sometimes I have trouble meditating for a long period of time. But this type of meditation is like really interesting because you kind of are like creating your own visualization and then interacting with it. So I think, you know, if you're in a good state of mind and you can actually like focus and sit, then it's really fun. And then in the future, like I was thinking about taking tantric vows, and I was thinking about like, if I ever get married, and I was thinking about like the moment before I become an angel, like sending kindness to those moments. And like, it's really fun. You like think about all the things that you want to accomplish. You imagine yourself accomplishing them, and then you send kindness to them. It's just like a really fun, I think it's a really fun meditation.
It is really fun. And it changes what happens in retreat for me, and I think it happens for most people too, but like you have memories that you don't remember.
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. Oh my God, I can't believe that happened. And like vivid. And it's like, you know, good or bad or whatever. But
or you make connections
you make connections
to childhood memories, like, oh, I do this thing all the time. Oh, that's why. Like I had one of those where I remember something from when I was like 4, and I was like, oh my God, that's why.
Yeah.
Do you feel it physically? Like pain or when you're experiencing the pain, do you feel it physically? Or when you're sending a love, do you
Maybe on a subtle level, yeah.
I definitely felt it physically. And you're a yogi, you probably would feel it physically too. Because it's all in the subtle body. So when you feel that tightness, you feel it. And then when you're expanding and you feel really open and everything is running really beautifully, like you feel it. It feels really good. And then the pain, of course, you feel. And then you flip it. Like the better you get at this meditation, it's like you feel a moment of pain, and then you use it as an excuse for kindness. And so you're just kind of like flipping the pain into a good feeling. Sometimes, not all the time, only if you have the time.
And you changed the meditation up a little bit too. Like it was generally the same meditation, but like things that we visualized were different. I don't think he ever went over this, but it was in the actual writing, the reading that he gave us about like, you imagine any time in the past where you felt happy was from you in the present right now sending happiness to yourself in the past. So you're like rewriting your history. And it's really cool.
I have a question.
Yeah.
One, did you get any flashes of past lives or future lives happening, or just this life?
Just this life. Although, not this retreat, but maybe not the last retreat. Retreat before that was when I realized like I can probably perceive my past life if I stayed in retreat long enough, because like the amount of memories that I was having that I didn't recall, I was like, it would just continue progressing backwards, and I would eventually remember my past lives, no doubt.
Okay, I'm just asking if it happened, it didn't, but
No.
possibility.
But those insights happen like, have you done the Dance of the Lion
No.
meditation? It's one that Jesse Michael is teaching a lot now, and then we teach intermittently here. So like one of the first parts of that meditation, oh no, I'm sorry, no, it's towards the end. You actually reflect on your past lives. And so in that meditation, but we didn't focus on past lives or future lives. We just kind of focused on us now. I think they could have broadened it, and then we didn't even talk about to the left of us and to the right of us, because that was a whole other teaching. But there's another aspect to the visualization.
That was like the prelims.
Yeah, I guess.
Because you like after you have the teachers do it.
Oh, yeah. There's another aspect to the visualization where you have all of your teachers sitting on the left side of you, like just close enough to touch if you reach out. And then on the right side of you are all the countless beings that you will help as a bodhisattva. So like when you have the direct perception of emptiness, I think it's only if you have it with bodhicitta. But then I've heard it taught if you just have it in general without bodhicitta. When you have the direct perception of emptiness, you also see the face of every living being on every different planet in every different universe that you will ever help or love. And all of those beings were sitting to our right during the visualization.
So that were you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Hector will be here next Thursday.
Should we dedicate?
Let's do it.
Do the chanting?
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
or you could just do it as a, like a meditation, but something where it's like, we did a lot of good things.
No, let's dedicate to that.
We have a question for you. And
Yeah.
when I walked in, you were talking about energy meditations. Can you talk a little more about that?
Were we?
Energy
Yeah.
meditation?
You're talking about feeling the energy in the body, and the more you feel the energy, the more aware you are, the more you can realize
I think it's like yoga.
I was talking about how yoga helps with realizations. So like, if you can get the prana running in the central channel, you'll understand things more quickly.
But we didn't do specific exercises to open up those.
We did Lady Niguma yoga. I mean, we did Ashtanga and we did yoga. We did Ashtanga yoga and then, like my personal favorite, Lady Niguma yoga, which you're directly working with the granthis and the chakras to pull energy into the central channel.
And so you did get to experience your chakras opening and stuff, or did you? Because it's one thing theory,
Me
another thing direct
personally?
experience. Yeah. And other people did it directly happen?
Well, if they opened, I would be enlightened.
No, not necessarily.
No. You can,
You'd be on the path towards it.
Yeah.
Bye.
Or I would have
Nice to meet
perceived
you.
emptiness. Well, I guess it depends on what you mean by opening. But if the side channels were to fall away and the prana was in the central channel, my understanding based on what I've learned, which is not a super extensive study of the subtle body, my understanding is that I would be in the direct perception of emptiness.
Well, my understanding is when they're all totally cleansed, but it's the process of cleansing and opening them. But when they're all fully developed, the whole channel is flowing, and the third eye and the crown chakra merge, that's when enlightenment happens. But to that point, we have to cleanse and open the channels. So it's a process.
Yeah.
And so I was just asking, did you do those processes and did people share about those experiences? Because to me, that's the foundation to my path, is the energy work. But I found very few people willing and able to talk about it with direct experience. And
I don't have a direct experience of opening my chakras completely. But also like in this school, which I'm sure you're aware, those teachings are secret. So the extent to which we would discuss them in an open forum, like I'm not qualified to teach on that stuff. The extent to which I teach is with the lay Nikuma practice, which like ultimately toes the line, but it's something that Geshe Michael teaches publicly. So I'm teaching it publicly. But it's definitely a tool that we utilized, and Coco, have you met Coco? So Coco,
wasn't she? Was she
yeah, she led that workshop. So Coco, who is my yoga teacher, she trained Stephen and I both in yoga. She was the one that was guiding us through those practices. And I think if you wanted to have a conversation about someone who has experience with those things, you should speak to her, definitely. I mean, I can say in my mind that she would be like one of the authorities on.
I'll just make one last comment then. Because in my experiences, my chakras are opening. That's when Heck keeps coming back to read out people's mind. Well, that skill is part of the chakras opening. Having full omniscience, that's another matter, but as the chakras open, it's an energetic connection, so you can know what other people think, because you know what you're thinking, and you know it's not okay, it's just you. It's called habit influence.
They talk about that in the Yoga Sutras too. Yeah.
And last week we spoke about how those are one of the cities that you would develop after perceiving emptiness directly.
But they also develop before emptiness happens, because they've already developed them. I just say they would become a lot better off afterwards than they were before. That's what.
You also must have like planted the seeds for that to happen.
Yeah.
You know.
But the most the Hector talked about last week, which is the first time I ever heard anybody ever say that, and which is very round. Be grateful that you don't have telepathy before emptiness, because you just get caught up in the misery. Because when I first started being aware that I was picking up other people's thoughts, all I was picking up their fear, so it was increasing my fear. And so I told him to stop doing that. And his whole point was, after emptiness is perceived, you won't do that. And that's just like the blessing.
Well, actually, you can. You can still have a negative experience of reading someone's mind. Because after you perceive emptiness, it doesn't automatically cleanse all of your karma. You can still have negative ripenings.
But you have more skill with it. You can be more skillful with it.
Right. You might not be convinced.
Because at least when I first learned that, because I thought being telepathy was a good loving thing, and then I was getting more and more paranoid. This is a good thing. So I have to learn to stop doing it. And as I'm learning to get healed inside, not telepathy sometimes isn't very helpful because I'm more loving because of it. But that's taken a lot of development. And I didn't have the training when I first started doing it. It would have been helpful having the guidance to help. But I had to learn it on my own, by trial and error, and see what was happening. It took years.
Incredible.
I think you can have like your energy flowing in your central channel, and like you can, like a first step, experience emptiness, but like I think that enlightenment, it's like the stuff I think about is like staying there enough, like that's seeing that, hearing things that you don't want to hear, like experiencing all the fear that other people are experiencing, and having enough, of a path, let's say it that way, to just like stay there. I don't know if that's kind of like what you were.
Yeah, it could
what
be
you
a practice. If you like,
That's the goal I'm going for.
When you become more advanced, then you can like experience pain, and you have advanced tools, then you just get better. It's like when they describe the path, like you start clearing the boulders that are obstructing your path, and then you clear away the mid-sized rocks. And then by the time you're reading people's minds and helping them with your, telepathy or insight or whatever your powers are, it's like you have tweezers and you're moving tiny grains out of the way. I mean, I don't know, I don't have magic powers yet, but also like according to emptiness and according to like what we're studying, certainly you can develop different experiences of reality, like before or after certain benchmarks that like the Galupas have laid or certain scriptures would denote. I mean, different masters have different experiences. For example, what the subtle body is like, which is our reality.
And then like there's also the permanent cessation of all mental afflictions, right? So it's like of all mental afflictions. So it's a graduated path until you get to a place where it's permanently gone, and then you're in that state forever. It would just be wisdom and bliss.
But I guess my question is, it doesn't just happen. Like you have to make it happen through the path.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Totally.
My understanding is everything short of nirvana you have to do. You have to learn those skills. The final step is when you don't do it anymore and nirvana takes over. And that's permanent because nirvana never was created, so it's permanent. We have to create the path to get there so that we can transcend.
Right, we create the causes for our suffering to end, and nirvana isn't a place that already exists. It's a state of mind that we cultivate by either building up or traveling down, like whichever way we're traveling in or going up or going around, like however, different schools talk about it in different ways.
My understanding is nirvana we don't create, it's deathless, it's eternal. Because anything we create is going to change, it's part of samsara.
But the path that we get to nirvana, we have to...
Right, that we have to cultivate.
Yeah.
So the path is to get out of samsara.
Yeah.
But we don't create nirvana, because usually we do it. The deeper study, and then if we create nirvana, it's not stable, because we have to maintain it, and we don't.
It sounds like a long debate.
Yeah, I would debate that, because otherwise, if we couldn't create something that was not changing, then how could we ever become the Buddha?
We don't create the unchanging, we create the path to the unchanging. That's one of my teachers makes the analogy. We don't create the path to the Grand Canyon, and we didn't create the Grand Canyon, but we travel the path towards the Grand Canyon.
It's actually a good debate. I'd be interested to hear what other teachers would say. I'm not saying you're wrong, or I don't know what.
Excuse me?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I just don't know. I would debate it.
Okay, that's how to learn,
Yeah.
sharing. But I just share one more story about my experience of compassion. It's been the most significant one I've had so far. I had a lover that was just, we broke up, and I was constantly obsessing on the pain. And every time I'd see him, I'd just be, pain would increase. And I kept noticing I was denying the pain. So for several months, I just worked and meditated. Let me feel the pain here now. Let me feel the pain. To break the denial, so I can stop myself. Then one day, I started my usual one. Let me feel. I couldn't even finish the sentence. I felt for a brief second, it totally disappeared, and I was in this transcendent state of pure bliss and compassion, love and compassion. I was like, wow, this is wonderful. I couldn't stay there. But then when I came back, I was detached from it. And so that's when I learned compassion is not painful, compassion is bliss. Because the pain is totally processed and released, and love is transformed into love. So that's my understanding of compassion is. And as I've shared that with other people, I've noticed a lot of people think compassion is sharing pain. And that's a step on the path. The real compassion is when pain's gone.
Right. Empathy would be like sharing pain, right?
But sympathy would be more that empathy may or may not be. It's debatable. It's semantics, so it's debatable.
Yeah.
Sympathy is just sharing their pain. Whereas empathy, you share compassion about their pain, which means you're not caught up with it. So you can be helpful. Because if you're in sympathy, you can get dragged down. If you're detached, you can offer a helping hand if they're willing to accept it.
Yeah. Nice.
But anyway, that's my direct experience.
Yeah.
And then working to make it permanent.
I know it's one thing to like talk about these things all the time, but to experience them is totally different. Should we dedicate?
Yeah, we should dedicate.
Okay. For those that don't know the hand gesture, you can just do that. For those that don't know the chant, just imagine that you're giving away all this goodness for every other being to experience it. Sashi Buki Jushin Meto Drum Vira Vichin Deyapadi Sangye Shinyu Mite Wardi Drokun Nanda Shinla Truparsho Yam Guratnamalakam Nyatayami Kewati Vyokun Sunam Yashe Sokshem Sunam Yashe Junwei Tapat Punito Parsho. Thank you guys for coming. That was nice. Thanks for teaching.
Do you want to stop now?
My shirt dried.